In this video, I want to cover an introduction or overview of the web viewer object. Now I'm going to create a blank file real quick here in my FileMaker application. I'm just going to call it test. I'm going to save it to the desktop. And of course, FileMaker will give me some predefined fields for my table. I'll just hit OK to dismiss it. And so here you can see my basic layout. I have one record right here. If I go to layout mode with Command or Control L, I can see the available tools up here at the top. The one that has dots around it with a little planet, that's our web viewer. So I click on it, I'm going to drag it down here. And what this is literally a carve out in the FileMaker interface where the operating system or the browser renders the contents of this box. So this is basically a web browser in a box. Now the web viewer was introduced in FileMaker 8.5, and really no one at the time understood the tremendous power of what the web viewer did. In fact, it wasn't until 360works came out with Supercontainer, which did digital document management in this box, where people started to realize the true power of what the web viewer can do. Now, this is obviously a Google map right here. I'm broadcasting from a studio in Fairfield, California, which is great. And initially, when this first came out, Claire's thought that this was great. We could show maps, do things like that, do other basic activities like that. But pretty soon, people really started to extend this tool to other things. And of course, later on in videos in this section, and really sprinkled throughout videos through the entire video course, are we talking about how to take the web viewer and solve a specific problem. Now, in this initial video, I want to explain just the basics. First off, it is an object, right? And this object is not rendered by FileMaker. FileMaker basically carves out this section and then calls the operating system, regardless of its Windows or Mac OS or iOS or whatever it is, the operating system is going to render this, which means that strictly speaking, FileMaker Pro doesn't control how this information is displayed. On the Macintosh, the code that drives this is based upon Safari or WebKit. WebKit is the API under the hood that a number of browsers will utilize. And so frequently, if it renders correctly in Safari, it will render correctly in here. If you go to the Windows world, the API that Windows is currently pushing out to people is based upon Chromium or Edge-based library. So once again, FileMaker can send data to this box and talk to this box. And starting with FileMaker 19, this box can talk directly back to FileMaker. We're going to cover that in a totally separate video. However, it's important to understand that if you go to browse mode here, and this box doesn't do what you want it to do, complaining to FileMaker won't help you at all because your operating system is rendering the contents of this box. Now, it's important to understand that when you set this box up, you can put a URL in here. So data from a public website or even maybe a private internal website is sending the data through the internet to your computer, to the operating system, and the operating system is rendering it in the box. FileMaker itself is not rendering it, which means largely FileMaker has no control over what's happening inside the box. Now, FileMaker did pass it this URL right here, and the URL could be anything else. We could send it to FedEx, for example, so there's some pre-canned ideas in here, or I could even send it to my own personal website. I could say, hey, let's go to RC Consulting. And then, of course, you have some options here, whether you show this box in find mode, you can allow interaction with the box, so you can actually prevent people in FileMaker from actually touching the box, which is interesting. I'll turn that off and show you that real quick. So I'm going to go back to browse mode. And of course, that little progress bar down there, we can optionally show that or not. Now notice I click on this, nothing happens. I'm trying to move it, nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Because we turned off the interaction. So in this specific case, FileMaker has this carved out section where the operating system is rendering a URL that came to us across the internet. Now, one other important piece in this introductory video is to understand that the data, in this case, came from the internet. We could actually have a field that's hidden on the layout or a variable of some type on the layout that actually contains the HTML code that drives this web viewer. So the HTML or JavaScript that's driving the web viewer can be publicly accessible, or it could be actually contained within the FileMaker file itself, so the web viewer doesn't have to go out to the public. Now, an example of that would be is if we looked at a copy of FM Starting Point. So if I'm going to pop open a copy of FM Starting Point, we have this update charts down here. Now, this normally runs pretty quick, but if the process is long, I wanted to show people that FileMaker was thinking about it, and working on it. And so we actually have these arrows animate and rotate. So if I click on that, so as you can see, it spins a little bit right here, then it goes away. This is actually a web viewer. And in this case, I think it's running a local bit of HTML or text, and it's not necessarily running it across the internet. So if I go to browse mode there, you can see it's just a animated GIF that spins. But you can use the web viewer to do all sorts of amazing things. And especially in FileMaker 19, a lot of the barriers that prevented us from doing cool things have been removed. So the web viewer is becoming more and more critical. And at the most minimal level, you can use it for little indicators, but you can use it for much more advanced items. For example, if I go to a calendar right here and I look at this calendar and I want to add an item, I say wash the cat. Then we have this dynamic calendar that's running right here. The little red line shows my time in the current day of where we're at. I can actually grab and move this around. This whole thing is a web viewer. This is super awesome. So you have the most basic, stupid use of a web viewer, a little indicator, which actually, if you use it correctly, can be very cool. And then you have this really advanced use of a web viewer all the way over here. And so while this one's very basic, this one is extraordinarily complex. And so in the following videos, we're going to dive more into the web viewer and how to make it work for you. And then, of course, towards the end of this video course, we have sections where we talk about Claris's add-on modules, as well as third-party add-on modules. And in both of those cases, those add-on modules are entirely based upon web viewer add-ons that you can add to your FileMaker application. It's extraordinarily cool.